Why struggle through a post-merger integration when you can glide through it? Why deal with the PMI integration challenges when you can overcome them even before they occur? Why move slow when you can move at pace? What are the world's leading PMI experts doing right now to achieve profit-accelerating integrations? This podcast will give you all the answers to these questions and many more. My name is Dudley Peacock, and welcome to the 100 Days and Beyond podcast.
Hello.
Hey, Novica, how are you?
Yeah, well, listen, just in this specific exact moment, my computer went to reboot. So I connected from my cell phone, but it will take probably 1 minute to finish the reboot.
No, there's no pressure. Whenever you're ready, no pressure at all.
Okay, actually, it already rebooted. What I need now. Do you need me to put put the jacket of the suit, or it's not needed?
Relaxed. It's a nice conversation between two hopefully like-minded individuals. You can relax. You can just be yourself. A lot of it's audio. It's a lot of the sort of podcasts will be audio. We'll only do 1 or 2 channels with video. So, and most of the podcasts we try and do in a relaxed format. We're really trying to be human and authentic. I don't know if that makes any sense to you, but that's the goal.
Sounds great. Okay, computer rebooted. So now it's just reopening the Outlook so that I can open the link, and the rest will be good to go.
I just want to get the correct way to pronounce your name. So it's Novica.
Yeah, it's Novica.
Novica, and your surname, because if I look at the LinkedIn profile, you've got 2 additional names.
Yeah, it's Novica Mrdovic Vianello. Yeah, I have 2 last names.
Mrdovic
Vianello. Double L, not N, not Vianello. Vianello. Okay. Yeah.
Vianello.
Yeah, that's right. So.
Okay.
Cool.
So, apologies, I'm not.
Great. So yeah, so good. Yeah, a few more seconds. It's it always happens like that it gets rebooted. Yeah. So just a few more seconds and it'll be good. Okay, are there any preliminary question that you would like to share?
No, we're going to go through the journey of how you got into this world, if you like. You're welcome to share whatever journey you feel comfortable with. We're going to be talking around a few golden nuggets, especially in your high tech, your photonics environment. So your background, how you got into it, what your focus areas are, and then some challenges and your method of working, that sort of thing. And then what's happening, what do you think is going to happen into the future? Really just a conversation between two individuals just talking about essentially the podcast is about it's called 100 Days and Beyond. So it's very much about once an acquisition has taken place, once there's actually a merge or some kind of integration that has to take place. So whatever that integration means in your world, that will be useful for the audience. And it takes on many shapes and forms. So there's no hard and fast rule. It's really just being nice and relaxed and just enjoying it.
Okay, sounds good. I don't know why it's not rebooting. If it continues like that, we can stay with. How is this audio?
The audio is very good, but let's give it a minute or so. No, don't stress. I'd prefer to have video if we can, but you know, if we can't, then it's also not a train smash.
Yeah, because I left the office like 20 minutes ago, preferring to do this one from home, you know, because there isn't less noise, less people, and so on. And but by doing so, probably I forced it. Probably I forced to turn off the computer, you know, which at that point, you know, is bringing me this issue, you know, with rebooting of the Outlook, you know, because the only thing I need from the Outlook is the link, you know. So you know what, I'm thinking, should I try to open it directly without clicking on the link? Because in this case, I won't have that issue. Might make sense. Okay. Join the meeting ID 848867033357. Because in this case, I don't have to wait. Oh, actually, it works. In this case, I don't have to wait the Outlook to reboot, you know.
That works. So you should be joining shortly on a second link, because I've accepted you, I've admitted you. There you are. I can see some visuals.
Okay, then let me disconnect from this one, you know, so. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you well.
Oh, hold on. Now it should work. Is it good?
It's good. You've got a bit of flashing on your screen. I'm not sure why. It's like it's picking up some kind of interference, you know, like electrical or some kind of interference. I'm not sure why, but it's not a major problem. It just gives little lines of flashes and so on.
Yeah, let me see what I can do about that. Probably seems like nothing.
Yeah, we just get the tech sorted. You know what it's like. It's always
yeah.
It's
Yeah. See it also. Yeah, it doesn't seem like I can fix that. So I can only do, the only thing I can do is to change the camera.
You could, or just log in again, log out, log back in again. Let's just see if that will fix it. Because sometimes that's all it takes. It just takes a switching off Zoom and then just logging back into Zoom again.
Oh, I don't think this is something I want to do, because in this case I'll have to reboot the
Oh, no, okay, no, don't do that then. Yeah, don't do that. Yeah, we're fine. I think if because most of it's audio anyway, and then we'll try and filter out the lines that are flashing.
Yeah, that's this is like super strange, because I actually disconnected this. No, I'm afraid I cannot do much about that unless to change the camera. Is this acceptable?
Is that a quick job, or is it a long job, the camera?
Yeah, let's see.
I don't want you to feel under pressure. There's no pressure at all.
Okay. It's okay, let me change the camera.
That's much better. That's perfect.
Okay, yeah, that's good. Okay.
Yeah, that's perfect. There's no more flashing lines. It's coming across clearly. So brilliant. That's excellent. Okay, now I've lost the sound now for some reason. Let me just see.
Did you lose the sound?
Oh, there we go. There we go. Okay, it's come back. It's come back.
Yeah, I can fix that too, if needed. Let me try. How is this?
It's okay. Maybe just a bit of volume. It's just a little soft.
Okay. What about this?
There, that's better. That's better.
Okay, yeah, because it seems like I have 3 microphones. So yeah, I didn't realize that. Okay, I think we're sort of good now. Yeah.
Yeah, we got the text sorted out and so on. So I'm going to just I'm going to re-record the introduction, but what I'm going to do is just to get you into the sort of swing of things. I'm going to do an introduction, and then just take that as your cue, and then I'll start you off with a question. Then we can always re-look at your bio. Obviously, we need a little photograph of you to go onto the podcast because you are a guest, and it's really just to get the flow going, and then you can after that we can always edit the intro, the recording. If at any stage you get stuck or something like that, we can cut bits out. It's not a problem. We could change things around. So there's some editing that can always happen during the course. Almost always the guys just keep on talking, and they just, if you get stuck somewhere, just start the story again and just keep going. It doesn't really matter because we can edit it out, and it's professional done at the end of it. So I'm just going to kick off. Hopefully I pronounce your name correctly. Novica Mrdovic Vianello.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so great. All right. Welcome everybody. We at the 100 Days and Beyond. We're busy with the next episode, and we've got an absolutely brilliant person today with us. Very much focused on high tech. Novica Mrdovic Vianello. I hope I pronounced it properly. And he's a general partner and managing director at Add Value. So what a CV, Novica. I'm going to quickly go through a few key things. For me, some of the things that stood out were the high tech, the photonics, which you're going to have to explain to the audience what that is. And then just looking at the languages that you speak. I mean, Italian, English, Russian, some French, Serbian. I mean, you can pretty much sit in any boardroom across Europe and in most places across the world. So that's absolutely brilliant. And then just looking at the actual, if I look at your profile, you're skilled in M&A, you corporate venture capital, you product lifecycle management, operations and manufacturing, CRM, R&D and sales management, strong professional, graduated from a number of business colleges and so on. So we really, I mean, we've got someone here today, and I think we're going to have a great discussion. I'm really looking forward to it. And I think there's some key things. So fiber optics, high tech. I mean, this is stuff that's current, and it's things that are happening right here and now. So let's have a listen. So welcome, Novica.
Thanks a lot, Dudley. Thanks. It's good to have you, to be with you here.
Yeah, brilliant. Tell us how you got into this, because wow, what a journey. I mean, before we started the podcast, you and I had a bit of a discussion, and you've had an incredible journey. And I'd love the audience to hear how you got, where you started. I mean, where you started and how you got into this world that just seems to be ongoing and it's an ongoing pressures, but also enjoyment as well at the same time. Tell us your journey. Let us hear it.
Yeah, actually it started pretty simple with the way that I'm an optoelectronics engineer. Well, optoelectronics, and we'll speak a bit later about the photonics in general, is the way how you change the electron to photon, you know. So instead of electronics, you're getting the light. I mean, think about the laser. You give it to the current and you get the light out of that, or think about your light bulb if you wish, and that's what the optoelectronics and photonics is. So I've started in late 1990s, actually 98. I started working as an engineer. Spent probably 5 years designing and being a development engineer. And after that, due to the fact that that the photonics and similar, I would say, cross technology topics are something that gives you a little bit of a visibility. You know, for example, if you're just programming, you know, and if you're spending whole of your day to program, you know, in this case, you're having a bit of narrow vision. On the other side, if you're a programmer that is also thinking about firmware, basically about how to implement that, if it's thinking about your customer, how they will look into that, it is the same programmer, but it's basically having a little bit of different visibility. So also in the case of photonics, because it's basically electronics and the optics and the application and the telecom and the medical, you're getting a bit of a vision of the world. So at a certain point of time, I was asked by my management, you know, if I would like to move from pure research and development more toward the business development, so that I could speak with the customers, I could speak with suppliers, I could speak with our engineering, commercial, sales, and so on. And I found it very, very interesting, because instead of sitting whole day just in the lab and testing the lasers, you know, it would give me also the visibility of where my lasers are used, you know. And seems, according to my old boss, that I was a good engineer, but still decided to move, and he never understood, you know, why I did it. You know, what's more fun than sitting in the lab and just programming. So yeah, after that, pretty much I started being involved in merger and acquisition teams. You know, back then these were the days of big JDS Uniphase that many of you recall as a stock market darling company that at a certain point of time had over 37,000 people and was doing serial acquisition. I joined the team of M&A due to the fact that I could discuss the technology, I could discuss the engineering part, but also the implementation, and I had a lot to learn from people that were back then coming from investment banking or just a pure M&A. You know, so my position was a little bit different due to the fact that I was having a background that was technical, you know, not of the investment banking, you know, but which proved to be good for my career. While investment bankers are still running the M&A world, you know, somebody who could sit at two chairs, maybe speak with engineers, then speak with the CEO, and then speak with the customer, proved to be of the added value. And this is something that I would in general suggest to people, you know, to be able to sit on multiple panels, on maybe technical one, but also merger or integration activities, you know, after that, particularly that we're speaking here about 100 days and beyond. So yeah, then I moved to M&A. From an M&A, I moved to corporate venture capital. Was involved in some of the biggest investments in the photonics and telecom world in early 2000, pre-dot-com boom. I was involved also in post-dot-com boom, you know, with the reconsolidation of the market. 20 years fast forward, decided to move more in investment funds like private equity and M&A. So we are running Out Value, which is syndicate club deal and M&A boutique. We are doing M&A both for us. We are an active investor. We find companies and we invest in them first, and after that we invite also other investors to join us in a syndicate club deal. In many cases, we're just doing a pure M&A when we're invited by other investors just to do the technical part of M&A, basically a due diligence and analysis and info memo. And in this case, we're also involved in integration activities post-merger.
Oh, that's magnificent. That is one incredible journey. And tell us a little bit more. I mean, so Add Value is involved in multiple types of deals. You also probably more advisory and so on. But I mean, you got two roles. You got the general partner role, which I imagine takes up a certain element, and then you've got the managing director role. So, do you deal with internally in your organization? Do you deal mostly with customers on the external? What's your sort of role? What's your day look like? Novica, what's your day? I mean, there must be so many things happening all the time. I'm guessing that one week to the next might not look the same. Tell us a day in the world of Novica.
One thing I can say for sure, it's not boring. When I think about my days in the R&D lab, these were nice days. I was 20 something and so on, but I wish I left that word even earlier, because being in this world is super interesting because every day is different. Now it's 6 p.m. here. You really don't want to hear my day, because pretty much I did 4 things, and I really don't feel like tired because it's great. Actually, all those 4 things were completely different. Just a hint. I was in a panel of club deal investors. We were brought 3 investments to review, and that was in Bologna, which is 200 kilometers away. After that, had a discussion about our new fund. Once we were done, it was in Milan, in downtown, and after that went to see the company that is our next investment target. So tomorrow instead is an M&A day where we are working for an external third party, where we have to analyze one company that is brought to us. So keep in mind that our world, being a boutique advisory and investor, it's not big, it's 11 of us, so so all of us have to do multiple tasks, and I would really have to say that it's really black and white. We're having very often people that we hire that after just 2 months they just cannot do it. They prefer to go in the office at 9 o'clock and finish at 6 and go to do the barbecue or anything. For us, there are some days which are completely boring when we are doing a bit of advising, and there are some days which are very rich, and you're doing completely different things, and definitely you have to be a person for that. You have to be able to switch activities, because at the end these activities are complementary. To give you one example, this morning we found a company where we want to invest, and it was part of the club deal. So we took on us. It's a club of 12 investors called Club 12. And when each of us is doing something else, we are the part that is doing M&A and analysis. There is one guy that is ex-banker, another guy that is investment banker, another guy that was ex-head of PwC, and so on. Between 12 of us, we pretty much can cover the entire investment part of that. And in this case, it was a pure, already in this case, it wasn't pure, wanted to say, because it was already a mix of thinking about M&A and thinking about investments. So all of these are pretty much complementary. If we find a deal, then we do the full due diligence. Of course, sometimes we have to ask external people to do certain things like anti-money laundering or compliance and this kind of things that are more technical or legal. But we find the company and we do the analysis and the due diligence, and then we invite appropriate investors for that. For example, if we are investing in robotics, we find a guy that has a precedent of using robotics in his factories. This guy is like super useful because he understands some of the things much better than we do. And we can even put that guy in the board of that company that we invest. And that's a part of the general partner. On the other side, if we are speaking about the advisory and, you know, being a managing director, in this case, we don't find the target. It's somebody else who brings us that. We had recently an example of Asian investor that wanted to invest in certain sector, and they came to us saying like, well, listen, we want to invest in this sector. We found these two companies. Can you bring us a few more so that we'll review where we want to invest? Actually, we brought them 3 more, but we admitted to them that among the 2 that they brought, one is better than all the others, you know. So we were not keen to push our findings, you know, but we simply said that out of these 5, the first one on their list is the best company. In this case, we did hold the job of a full due diligence and M&A, which happened to be one of the nicest SPACs in 2021. The company is still holding for a difference of many other. So it's pretty good company, but it wasn't found by us, you know. So our back office did a wonderful job, even in the case where we were not doing the finding of the company, you know. And then after the acquisition was done, we were asked actually to follow that company, basically their integration activities, how they would fit to the rest of the system, you know, post SPAC, and to make sure that everything would work well, you know. So I wouldn't say these are different jobs, because these are all propedeutical for the same activity. Whether we invest or whether we don't invest, you know, we are still finding these companies, doing a due diligence on these companies, and doing integration activities, you know, even to a certain point, keeping them in mind for the product life cycle, you know, of the company. So yeah, it all goes together, but this is not a job for the faint at heart, or for somebody who really wants to finish, you know, Friday 4 p.m. and just go for a long weekend. You know, sometimes we don't have a weekend, sometimes we have 6 days or 7 days weekend because there is nothing to work on.
That's fascinating. So if to summarize the traits of an individual, of someone that suits this environment is clearly someone that needs that kind of continuous challenge. I imagine, I mean, with your educational background, you could probably speak the language of multiple disciplines within the companies that you engage with. So it's, for me, you know, there's a certain type of individual. So there's not just the skill set, but there's also the personality, that kind of trait. Do you want to maybe just expand a little bit on that? So if we had to say these are the top 3, 4, 5 things that are really good M&A, integration, or a deal-making environment, what are the essential traits that you think?
You know, I would say that there was also an element of luck in my career, because I had exposures to certain elements that you have mentioned, not because I was super curious, you know, to enter into that. You just enter in certain group, and then the guy that is your boss quits, and then you have to cover also some of the things that in the plan he was like, okay, you know, Vika, you do this, and I'll take care about that, and then the guy quits, you know, and you suddenly have to do also his part of the job, and you really don't know. But you know, at that point, you get mentored by somebody who explain you the underlying mathematics of all of that, you know. So what my general recommendation is for people to have the experience with a big international corporation. I recall, you know, at Neo Photonics Corporation, we were like 67 nationalities, you know. So it's super good when you have definitely very high level of diversity among the people. You know, these guys are shy. I mean, the entire nation is shy. You know, I'm not trying to make, you know, to make general points. You know, it's just that the way how you're behaving when you're negotiating with for example, with a Japanese guy or with Italian or Spanish, it's very different.
Mm.
Even people that are speaking the same language that are from different part of the country, or from different countries speaking the same language, you really have to be careful about cultural differences, not to speaking about negotiating with some Arab nations, you really have to have a full respect on people and on their particularities. There is no way to just to be born with that. You have to have that experience. What's better than working in a big company? In a big company, you're simply meeting these kind of guys. You're being sent to negotiate in Dubai as much as and after that you go to Japan, and there is no more different. And after that you go to Israel, and then you just get, completely different situations. So those kind of negotiating skills is something you have to learn. Nobody's born with that. And you have to really have your eyes and ears open, not to say something wrong, and just to learn, not to learn by doing, but to learn by watching other people how to do it. So my general recommendation is work a couple of years to a big company, try to get exposure to different nations, try to get exposure to different business units, go to sales, go to M&A, go to accounting. For example, when I was doing my MBA, I was offered, because at that point I was already on a high position, I was offered to do the executive MBA. I rejected that, because executive MBA is just for people so that they can use the finance numbers. Instead, I decided to go to a full-blown MBA, 3.5 years, because I wanted to learn the accounting. I wanted to learn how people that are maybe 2 levels below me, how they're thinking, so I wanted to become CPA, I didn't need it, finance, human resources, and all of these kind of things. So the only way to do it is if you're in a big company. After that, when I thought that I'm good with that and that I'm good with cultures and so on, I moved to a startup, which at that point was a Series B company. They had only a few rounds of investments, bleeding cash all over the place. I was their employee number 200. When I left, it was like 7,000 people and so on. So when you are employee 200, really you have to do so many things. There is no question if you want to pick up the airplane tomorrow and go to Moscow, and it's snow, it's cold there, there is no question. You say, well, really, I don't want to participate in negotiations because this is not my part of job. Well, the next, you go to the contract manufacturer in Thailand, and you sit on the table with the people that you've seen first time, and you get briefed 10 minutes before of that why you are there at all. It is when you are working for the startup. So I would say the traits that are needed in order to do that, it's related with curiosity of the person. It's genuinely related with the fact of being humble. Because if you don't know to do something, if you're not humble, if you go to Japan and if you behave like how I would behave, I live in Milan in Italy, I wouldn't get too far there. So you have to learn from the people that know how to speak, how to behave with Japanese, so yeah, you have to be humble. You have to listen. And so yeah, and then the willingness to have different experiences, like a big multinational company versus a small startup, where you have to be a secretary and you have to be a clerk, and you have to ship the samples by DHL, and then you have to drive somewhere, to see if it all works, and in the evening you have to put back your tie and maybe take your supplier for a dinner, showing that you are actually a respectable company. So yeah, these would be the couple of points, maybe not necessarily traits, but genuinely curiosity and humbleness and willingness to understand other people's job in order to respect.
There's definitely a work ethic there as well. I mean, for me, just listening to you speak, you've got to be able to invest in yourself, invest in the in entity that you belong to, or that you're working for, or that you're part of. And it even seems to me, from a work ethic and a willingness to keep learning, Yes, it is humble. I mean, just as a side note, do you have any particular mentors that come to mind in your journey? Were there people along the way that helped you in your journey?
You know what? I'm investing a lot of in startups, and then people expect from you, because you did invest the money, to be there and mentor. You know, now people are a little bit more open about that. Like, oh, will you be my mentor? You know, this back then, you know, people were just helping you, you know, with the advices. But I was often asking some people, hey, what you just told me is so great. Would you mind if I would every while give you a call and ask you for the opinion about this and that? You know, and you know what? Some people were saying no. I mean, yeah, I do mind, you know, I don't have time. Oh, really? I don't want, you know, you to call me every morning, you know, to ask me something. Like, no, 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 I really meant to call you every while just for advice. Like, no. But it happened a couple of times, but normally people would react normally if you would say, listen, we are doing M&A in Asia. Would you recommend us some legal company, you know, to take care about that? And people would do that. Or asking them a question like, what do you think? Should I leave that CFO, you know, for some time and then replace him, or immediately replace him? You know, and people are very, in many cases, like very straightforward, which is something that I would call mentoring. Like, oh no, you know, if the situation is companies like that, you just change the CFO immediately, you know. So yeah, there was I did get a lot of mentoring over the course. In many cases, it was more of a push than of a pull. You know, I didn't have like a formal shadow guy that would work with me. You know, I really had to create a list of people to call in case of trouble or in case of doubt. So, but yeah, you know, generally people, with a couple of exceptions I mentioned, were available to give you direction and to give you their best experience. And I'm really grateful to them for that.
Well, that's fantastic. So again, it's a I would say a positive in terms of your willingness to be curious, to ask the questions, to get the no, you know, to get that even sometimes a negative response, but to say, look, I need to learn. I want to know. Tell me more. And finding the right kind of people. What struck me when we first started the conversation was your club of 12 appears to me to be almost a mastermind group of individuals that they all have a similar let's call it the same sort of outcome they're looking for, but they come from diverse backgrounds, and it's to a great extent you're all living out your passion and your skills. But at the moment, you know, you actually, by creating these club groups, it's almost like you're creating your own mastermind groups, and that sort of struck me in the beginning. Is that a fair comment?
Yeah, you know, I would like to add one more thing. You know, it's always important in the life to get surrounded by people that are having different experience. You know, everybody's experience is unique. Maybe I'm good in some things, I'm really bad in some other. And good thing is to know where you're bad, you know, so that you can invite somebody who's good in that. In general, I'm a very big fan of diversity. You know, diversity of skills, but also diversity of backgrounds. You know, something that I always insist is to have at least one lady in the team. It is not about, you know, being modern, about diversity, ESG, and so on. It is empirical thing, you know. So many investments that I would have done in my life, if I didn't have a lady in the account that would say, well, listen, it's really bad investment, you know. So I mean, ladies have a different brain, and it's so great to have somebody in the straight team that will have, of course, she must have a courage. She must treat you the same, and you have to treat her absolutely the same. And she had to have a nerve to tell you this deal is completely bad, or you did something on a wrong way, you shouldn't be doing this way, you know. So diversity is really key. You know, I'm speaking about men and women, but I'm also speaking about different nationalities, you know, having somebody from Japan or somebody from, I would call it, more aggressive countries, you know, including Italy or Israel, which I would probably put on the top of aggressive countries, you know. And also, as you mentioned, you know, Club 12 as a diversity of skills, diversity of backgrounds. But I would also like to add one more point. You know, I learned M&A by working, as mentioned. You know, I started as an engineer, did an MBA, worked various things. But you know, some of the things of M&A we were always doing one way, and I was curious. Okay, these guys that taught me how to do it this way, these guys were at that point of time having maybe 30 years or 40 years more than me, much more money, much more experience, and they just told me like, well, do it this way, you know. And when I asked them why this way and not the other way, because I'm a curious person and I really want to know why, they were telling me, well, we were always doing this way, you know. At certain point of time, there was a COVID like a year and a half ago, and we were sitting at home. We were not allowed to go to office. We were doing some deals. It was pretty slow. I was pretty bored, I have to say, you know, and I did on my old university from back days, you know, Imperial College of London. I did an M&A course, and you know, on the orientation, they were asking me. I think you were supposed to teach here instead of sitting there considering the, you know, $47 billion track record and these kind of things. And I said, no. There are always few things I can learn. And I can say that there were some parts of that course which were a little bit boring, but I finally got an answer why we were doing the things always the same way. Because clearly in the technology, you know, you cannot invent the hot water. I mean, you can invent the technology, but when you're doing certain things, the reason why people are doing always in that way is because they tried also other ways, and for technology it didn't work, you know. So it took me 50 years of my life to realize that my curiosity, why not doing the different way, was answered because other ways were wrong, you know. But yeah, something that I would always recommend is, particularly if you're changing the scope of your activity or if you're entering in something new, take a course. Now you can get it everywhere. People are doing it online. And at that point, you know, you can always get updated knowledge, but you can also find out about new ways of doing things. And it can also explain you why you're doing things the way you were always doing it.
Yeah, I love that. I think that anecdote, that's brilliant. It is absolutely spot on. I'm going to change track a little bit in terms of, because you got big business experience. You've been part of a startup that grew at a massive rate from 200 to 7,000 staff. The difference between in-house and outsourced skills. You know, I think just like any industry, there's probably a limited pool of people that have got the kind of skill set that you've got. And in the world, if you look at the community, there will be people that are more migrant. They will move from one company to the next in terms of employment, be part of new teams. They like to start things. There are other people that like to stay in and keep building. There are other people that prefer to be exposed to multiple industries and avenues and so on. But some people like a method of being potentially more outsourced. So they won't engage in terms of an employment contract. In other words, have one employer, where others prefer having a single employer and multiple projects. So give me your view and your experience, the dynamic between the outsourced individuals, in-house individuals, in-house teams versus outsourced teams, doing not only M&A work, but if we go to integrations, we talk about due diligence, we talk about post-deal due diligence as well, because there's also sometimes some of that. They're also managing specific work streams, because if you look at technology versus human resources versus sales, marketing, and so on, each one of the work streams, you can't know it all. And in-house teams don't necessarily have all the resources, or if they're big enough, they can. Give me just sort of your view on outsource versus in-house and that dynamic.
As always, the truth is in the middle. It depends a little bit from industry to industry. If you're in the fintech, it's different than if you are in aerospace, robotics, artificial intelligence, and photonics, where I am. So there are in general 2 points. You need to have some skills in house, so that you can understand what the company is doing and where it's going to take it. The problem with on the other side, you have to also know where to stop, because basically in-house skills, how often you are doing big acquisitions? Few times, so you really cannot afford to have the top-notch ex-investment banker, from Goldman Sachs, that is, completely bored and playing golf whole day, because you will eventually need him, need her. So you really have to have a key team, people in the house, but these people have to know what they're good in and what they're not good in, because it is really important from day 1 up to day, let's say 200, to involve the external people that are experts for that. And many companies have failed in M&A due to the fact that they try to do it all in-house. Many companies also failed M&A because they try to do all outsource. Something that we often see, I'm not going to name any company, but there are some, advisory companies that are having big names and big tickets, but in practice, they send you a 26-year-old brand new from university. And this guy is super intelligent, and he had like the top grades at his university, but he simply doesn't know that. He doesn't have experience. And what's even worse, out of that big check that these guys have sent you, this poor guy is not going to even get the bonus. So for him, it's a good experience, but that experience is paid by my company. So it is really important to have some key skills in the house from the people that are loyal, from the people that understand the company inside out. But it's super important that those people don't think that they're almighty, that they're super good, and that they would engage the right external people immediately. I would say even much ahead. I'm a big fan of outsourced skills. People would just be great in something, and you would invite this guy, you would tell him, well, listen, I'm considering to acquire this company, what do you think? And if this guy is professional enough, he, in many cases, and it happened to us, he would say, that company is really bad, and I think you're buying it out of desperation. Why don't you just spend another 3 months to find a better target to acquire that? Just don't pick this first guy, because these guys are bad. I know them. This is kind of advice that is super great. And you know what? 20 years after that, you keep using that guy because he was honest with you. He didn't say, oh, sure, I'm going to charge you 100K to buy this stupid company because it was you to pick it up. He was honest enough. So basically, I am a big fan of outsourced skills. These guys are experts. They will stay on one project between 5 days and 5 years, but they would really do something that you simply cannot afford to have in-house. These guys are just better or way too expensive to have them in-house. That's first point. Second point is also interim help. Think about integration CFO. Integration CFO is a very special skill. It's like a intensive care unit medics. This guy have to have a cold nerves. He have to know everything about brain surgery, all the way up to, you know, orthopedics and so on, and he really have to react very fast. But it would be an overshoot to use him and as a pediatrician, you know, because this guy is really working under stress. He's working under 5-minute scenario, and that's what I also say about some integration CFOs. Do you really need integration CFO for 3 years? No, you need him for 100 to 200 days. He'll fix things, and then the normal CFO, which by the way is paid 1/6 of this other guy, is going to take back. On the other side, the first guy, even that he's paid 6 times, well, he's doing that only maybe a few times a year. So that's where the money goes, you know. So yeah, I think
Yeah, I think it was also, I heard someone use the analogy, and it's probably not, it's not maybe appropriate in today's time, but the analogy of having a wartime leader and a peacetime leader. You know, people that are in a wartime that lead, let's say, nations or countries or whatever, they'll be good at certain things. But as soon as peace arrives, they fall over. I mean, you can probably go back in history and have a look. And then the opposite is true. You know, you have peacetime people that are really good at grinding it out and putting systems and processes and things in place and just doing the farming kind of thing. And if there's a crisis, they then crumble and fall over. So, I mean, that's probably just not a great analogy, but there are instances in history, if you look at sort of people running countries, but even companies. I want to ask you around that sort of, do you think that it is realistic to have 100 or 200 or 300 day plan for different parts of of an integration? Do you think it's realistic to do things in parallel or in some kind of sequence? Give me an idea, because I love your concept about the CFO that's really good at the, you know, they've got to be multi-skilled but be able to work under stress, compared to your average CFO, that not average, but the person that's good at ongoing sort of repetitive work. So tell me a bit about the work streams, because if you take on an entity, you've got various skills that need to be addressed. And each one of these must be run either in parallel, in sequence, or both. If you know, what would you take as, maybe I should ask you like this, what would you take as sort of the priority things that have to happen in the first 100 to 200 days? And what do you kickstart? What do you get going that you know will take longer? I mean, take an ERP system, for instance, a business management system. When you're doing an acquisition, invoicing still has to happen. Payroll still has to happen. There's still a lot of things that still have to happen from a day-to-day basis, but there might be a need to shift them out of that system, to keep them on the system, to integrate the system. I mean, that in itself is a work stream on its own. There's also the people work stream. I mean, there are multiple, I mean, sales and marketing, the technology side where you're very, very strong, as well as is what happens if you're buying an IP, for instance. You're buying a technology, you're bringing it on board. That in itself has got a legal and other process that has to be followed. Just to summarize my question, then, it's just give me your take in terms of parallel sequence. What are the things to get out the way quickly versus what are the things that you need to take a bit of time with in terms of those different work streams?
You know what, being an ex-engineer, you know, I'm not a big fan of improvisation, you know. I'm not a big fan of like, let's see and then fix it, you know. I would put my approach into two things, you know. I don't speak about 100 or 200, 300 days. I speak about -100, you know. My point is that the entire full detailed plan should be done -100 days ahead, you know. So 100 days before of the acquisition should be done a full plan, because that plan will be wrong, you know, but at least it will align everybody there. Because once you sit with your team and with their team and with acquired team, you know, people will tell you like, it won't work, you know, have to have The bad thing is at that point you realize who is a yes man and you just take him out. But basically you have to make a minus 100 days plan, because in this case, you must predict everything into that. IP, for example, now a big deal is cybersecurity. Because people tend to forget it. Okay, I acquire a smaller company and they're having wonderful ERP, so I'm going to take their ERP, because mine is built in house. As we were growing, we were just adding lines of software and so on. And over the time, I forget that my company is big and the other is small, and we will use their ERP. We are going to pay new license and so on, but we're going to forget about cybersecurity, because my company that is big is running on cybersecurity to do something, and they are doing on a very small scale, to do various things. So now cybersecurity, I would say, is the most often forgotten minus 100 days item. So the first point would be that what I call minus 100 days. The second point, it's not like, I'm clever, I'm going to make minus 100 and then I'm going to hire a yes man that's going to follow up that, like, the German officer in the Second World War, like we were receiving orders. Well, you have to think about that, So the second point is really important, to be able to change things on fly, to be flexible. If you say to somebody like maybe 2 levels below of you, like, okay, here is your plan. We bought this company, now go there, go to Thailand or go to Canada and integrate those guys, Well, this guy will try to do the best to show me the respect by respecting my timeline and my schedule. And my schedule is wrong, because there were some things we did not know 100 days before, there were some things that we just have forgotten. Some things have changed over the course of the acquisition. Maybe a couple of guys left, and so on. So keeping all of that in mind, at that point, to summarize, it's minus 100 days, very detailed plan. And the second one, be very flexible, monitor things and change on fly. If you realize that their ERP that you really wanted to integrate is bad, you don't keep on doing because your boss told you to use their ERP. You just say, raise a hand. Their ERP is not going to work for us. It's having cybersecurity flows that are going to kill us. We'll have a huge liability toward our customers, if it fails. Our stock price is going to be crushed if you have this cybersecurity attack based on the ERP that we decided to integrate. So the integration team have to have the courage and have to have the flexibility to change things on the fly. But I am a big fan of providing a very detailed plan, because some of the guys will not have the courage to do that. Some of the guys are pretty much like doing their job for a salary, not thinking too much, maybe they're more intelligent than us, but they're just maybe not motivated. Some of the guys are from the acquired party. They think that they might be laid off, or their plans with that company will prove to be different what they thought it would be, so at that point, simply, too bad, they're not motivated, so yeah, this would be the two parts I'm using: minus 100 days and after that, change on fly.
I like it a lot. So let me just ask you on a philosophy in terms of, there's obviously a difference between when you're doing your own acquisitions, or if you're advising on acquisitions, on M&A. So often when you're advising, you would need to learn both companies, their strategy, the acquirer versus the target. You would need to understand two entities. If you yourself are the acquirer, you also have to be clear of who you are and what your intention is and your strategy of acquiring a particular target. So there's a different dynamic for me between doing your own versus advising on two parties that are essentially getting together. One obviously stronger than the other because the one is buying the other. I want to talk about the people side, because there's often a conflict where you have an entrepreneur that's got a smaller business that's being acquired by a larger business. and they've brought the entity to a particular level. They are the brains and the driver behind it. Now there's a bigger entity taking over. You also have senior people within that organization that have entrenched themselves. You also have key staff in the target company. As a philosophy, how do you deal with it? Do you let everybody reapply for their jobs, for instance? Is that a process? Or would you rather go and assess to see individually first? Do you use any tools for working with the people? Because obviously in a target entity, they are concerned about their careers, they're concerned about their futures. So you got to deal with it delicately, but you also have to know what direction you want to go into, whether it's your own acquisition or you're doing advisory work. So just tell me about the people process that you like to follow. What is your, was it just horses for courses again? It's a per type of company, or is it per target? Give me an idea of what's your process around the people side of things.
On your first question, about the difference when you are on acquiring side, when you know your company, you don't know the other side, versus the advisory where you don't know either of them. Let me put it as a joke, but very often you realize what's your company while doing that, and in some cases there are some surprises because you did expect your guys to behave in a certain way, but they didn't, So in some cases there are similarities between just being advisory and learning both sides and just being an acquirer. when you think you know your people, and in some cases no. Because also, we are human beings, you're acquiring smaller company and you're doing M&A and you realize that the other guy on the table of acquired company is actually better than you are, so at that point you actually think like, oh, is my job under threat, so it doesn't necessarily happen that you keep, the acquiring guy, it can be also the guy from the other side, but in general, if we speak about people, I think in any M&A, people should be the first worry. Because normally you acquire I'm speaking about technology because that's the sector where I am, but normally you acquire one company about the technology. Okay, they have great patents, they're having great product, they're having great market traction, and so on. But these products are made by the people. So people very often neglect the fact that they have acquired certain company because of their patents. Actually, they should keep in mind that they're acquiring that company because of their people, because those patents and the technology is made by these people. So we did part of one acquisition, and it was the part where we were the acquirer, where different business units that took care after that, the integration process, they suddenly decided to move the factory from Connecticut to San Jose, California, because it was closer to the headquarters. So thinking that they would control that easier, and so on. And they lost the recipe. No, I'm not kidding, they lost the recipe because people from Connecticut really didn't want, people having like, I don't know, 1,000 square meter house in Connecticut, in the middle of green, and for the price of that house in San Jose in the boom days, they could buy a 2-bedroom small apartment in the condo. So they really didn't feel like moving from Connecticut to San Jose, and my colleague said like, that's fine. We have the technology, we have the machinery. By the way, that machinery is many hundreds of millions of dollars. It's robotic, we'll just move it. But they lost the recipe. Over the time, they had to kill the entire business unit. And by the way, the guy that had a brilliant idea that people are not important, he got laid off, around the fact that he didn't realize that that company were people sitting in Connecticut, not the people sitting in San Jose or some equipment sent by U-Haul from east to west coast. So again, I'm repeating it because it's super important in any kind of integration. People are the most important, and people are the key asset. If you have a bad product and good people, they realize that in time, and then they will make a good product. They'll make the modification. If you have a good technology, that technology is going to expire. Patent is expiring you'll find a customer that wants something different. You recall Nokia when they had wonderful product, that was the best cell phone, but it expired. People wanted to have a bigger phone with a touch screen and so on. So nobody cared that the technology was great. They were not putting enough effort in their people. They were putting too much effort in the quality and in their own technology. So on that point, finally, to answer your question about how to do it with the people, you have to really be close to them. My experience is that you have to speak with them as a team, but then you have to speak with them as individuals, because each of them will behave in a herd, like, oh, we're so happy that you guys acquired us, so now we'll finally have money to receive the salaries, but on the other side, each of them as a human being is having his normal concerns. Is the other guy better than me? Should I change the job? Should I move, from being engineer for this to be an engineer for that? And as a part of minus 100 days, it's also interviewing of the key people and understanding who are the key people, because it's not said that the key guy is a CTO or a CEO. In some cases, you have guys that are director or VP level that are actually more essential for the company than the CEO that is just milking the cow, So key before of the acquisition and immediately after the acquisition is to make sure that only people that you want to leave would leave. You need to make sure that people that you want that are essential for this acquisition would stay, because that's the only way to have 1 + 1 being free, because way too often 1 + 1 is 1. I was reading as a part of this M&A course that I did, there was a huge statistics of the M&A. Only 30% of M&A deals have achieved what was planned to achieve. 70% failed. Some of them failed miserably. Two of us, we can name at least 10 of good companies that after a bad acquisition, they failed. Not when 1 + 1 is 1, for them 1 + 1 was 0, because even the first company went down after some acquisition. Think about some banks in Europe, think about some technology corporation from Silicon Valley that become 0, that don't exist anymore. They were sold for penny, because of people.
Absolutely right. So I want to, as we move now closer to the end of the episode, I want to get maybe some a golden nugget or two, a few words of wisdom, just something about something special. So we have different people that are our audience members that listen to this podcast, and some of them would be in the industry and they're just looking for a few golden nuggets. Others would be interested in terms of doing this as a career. Others would be looking at hiring integration or M&A advisors. Others might be just inquisitive. So there are different people would listen to this and the other podcasts. If you could give sort of a few golden nuggets, or one, just even if it's one, what's something really unique or special that you could say, you know what, this is one of the big aha moments I had, or this is a learning that I've had, or this is something that I want to carry on going forward, or share with people. So maybe just give us something that you can think of that we can share.
I would split this answer in two, because of my career that involved me acquiring for the company, so being a buyer, or a seller. So being involved in own activity, and the second one is being an advisor, where you work for the money. You can be more or less motivated. You might like it more or less, but in this case, you were working for somebody. It's his idea. He wants to do it. He invited you to be more of a service provider for him. So in the first case where you are doing your own acquisition, when you are working on on your own vision, two things I I would say, the first one is basically look at very long-term trends. Many acquisitions were done with a short-sightedness. People were trying to fix their temporary problem, and they were putting so much effort in fixing a temporary problem. By the time they would have done the integration, there would be another problem to fix. Keep in mind that never mind how good you can plan the M&A, it always takes longer, and there are always some problems that show up, not because somebody didn't want to tell you about that. It simply happens, so it is always more complicated than what you think. Even when you go to buy a newspaper, it's across the road, but then there is an accident on the road, or they run out of that newspaper, or you meet your neighbor and you stay 5 minutes to chat. So it always takes long. So I would always suggest, when buying, look long-term trends. Don't look at fixing a temporary issue. And the second one is really be ready to be flexible. Things will change. If you fix that by the next year you want to be 100 million, be ready to react, even if you're 70 or even if you're 200 million, because things are changing among the things that you can control, but especially about the things that you cannot control. Think 3 years ago, who were thinking about COVID? Stocks market was going great, life was good. Issues with the climate and melting of that ice, but people were pretty light-minded about all of that. Now, fast forward, there is much more investments in the climate change. People are moving to the cleaner energies, to less dependence from certain states involved in the war, and so on. So basically, as I said, look long-term trends and be flexible. That's when you're buying. On the other side, when you're on the advisory side, you can say that you're detached from that, but you really have to do a good job, because otherwise nobody will hire you after that. So you still have to put the passion and have a courage also to say to your employer, that you're providing a service, that some things don't work. So two things I would say on that one, is as I mentioned ahead, plan in details, plan as many details you can, but also have your eyes and ears open to change it, because you simply didn't plan everything, and because some of the things would change anyway. And the second about this one is be honest. Be honest. If you see some things don't working like that, instead of covering your back and saying, oh, it's not my fault, just be honest, like, okay, we planned it this way, it doesn't go this way, let's change it on the fly. So honesty and humbleness is something that I always find very important when you're doing advisory work. Last week we got a big M&A agreement, probably one of the biggest we ever got. And a guy yesterday, when he informed us that he would give that one to us, is because my colleague told him about one point that they asked, how would you fix it? My colleague said, I have no idea, so I really have to learn a lot to figure out how to fix it. While our contender, and the problem is really tricky, our contender said, oh, that's easy. While the owner of that factory, he knows it's not easy, because the guy is turning 80 next year, and he knows how much time it took him to fix it, and he didn't even fix it, which is the reason why he's engaging us. So we got hired around the fact that we said that we don't know how to fix it, but that we'll really, dig under every stone how to find a way, versus our contender who said that that's easy. Being humble, being honest, helped to us last week.
Yeah, I love your story, and I think that speaks to probably, Novica, your core values. Who you are as a person. You're curious. You've got a very high work ethic, You got this sense of a knowing of self-worth of who you know who you are. You also have a very clear understanding about being humble and honest and having the ethics and the integrity. So I think those are traits that are key to being an M&A practitioner and working with people's lives. You know, you're working with people's lives. You are not only working with the employees, but the owners, the ex-owners, the people who have engaged you. If you're an acquirer, you're dealing with even with customers and suppliers who rely on that entity that you're engaging with, and then all the communities and that are around that. So I think the knock-on effect is often a lot bigger. And if you do it wrong, and if you have a wrong set of core values, I think that's where you can break down, as opposed to grow and grow with your career as well. So I've got to commend you for that. I think that's absolutely brilliant. From a core set of values, and I think that's portrayed, and I think in a lot of the stories that you shared. I want to know a little bit, Novica, about the future. What do you see for yourself? You're clearly a guy that will probably not like to sit and rest. I think you're a guy that's continuously curious, I'm guessing. You like to learn and be challenged. And I think that's the kind of trait that an M&A practitioner or an integration practitioner shows. Tell me about your future. I mean, that's my guess. Tell me if I'm right or wrong. Where you want to go? What do you want to do? I mean, you've got this great entity up and running, and you've got a great group of mastermind people. You've got teams around you. What's next? What's the next step or phase?
Well, you know what? I don't think I'm a person that will ever go to retirement. I just don't think that I could cope with sitting home at 7 days. But that's a different thing. I think longer term, I would move more and more into post-merger, follow-on and integration, and less in finding deals, working on due diligence, on plans, and these kind of things. Because at moments, particularly when you're proceeding with a certain age, it's too dynamic. It's like going after deal, finding these deals, doing due diligence, negotiating, taking an airplane, flying all over the place. It's becoming too dynamic for the certain age, So I think over the time, I would probably go away from that part of thrill, and sit more in post-merger integration, making sure that things go well. Maybe even if I co-participate in creating the deal, still, I would just make sure that those deals are being done properly, and that the companies are making 1+1 being 3, not 1+1 being 1 or 0.
Yeah, and I can see that, and I can, from your career and your understanding of the industry, I think the value you can add to an integration process would be absolutely brilliant. So just in terms of just a bit of personal stuff, what's your work-life balance? What do you do when you're not working, when you're not being curious and taking on new projects and so on? What does that look like? I mean, how do you keep yourself, on balanced, if there is such a word?
I was making mistakes when I was younger. At a certain point of time, I got very fat. It was just all the time in the airplane, all the time. Well, let's use a politically correct word, obese. But I was probably more than obese. But it was just too much of airplane, too much of dinners, too much of working breakfasts, and too much of cars taking you from point one to point B, and airplanes and so on. What I realized, luckily in time, is that that you have to have time to rest mentally, but also to work physically, because both are important, that you have time not just to relax mentally, but also to have time to think. Because very often when you enter in a machine, you're working, inertia gets you somewhere, and you think like, if I had 5 minutes to think, I would have done this different. A little bit to say something about that. By the way, at certain point of time in important negotiations, I was always putting my clock to buzz me, to go to toilet, and not because I needed to go to toilet, but because I was forcing myself to go 10 minutes to make a break, to just to get out of the pot, maybe to think out of the box, maybe I'm doing something wrong. But yeah, the mental health and mental relax is important. It is also important also to have the physical work. I suggest to people something that I'm doing for a couple of years. I'm putting going in walking, driving bicycle, or gym, or whatever, tennis, golf, whatever you prefer, just to put it in your agenda like a normal meeting. Like it's Monday 11 o'clock, Wednesday 4 p.m. And Friday morning 6 a.m. Because if you have a meeting with the president of the United States, you really need to go there. But if you have also a meeting with your gym at certain point of time, if you respect that, just make sure you really respect that you don't say, okay, this is less important, let's cancel this meeting. But if you really consider that as a meeting with the president of the United States, you will do good to your health, your both mental and physical, and you will do also good to your colleagues, bosses, employees, employers, because you will be basically in a better shape, not just physical, but you'll be in a better shape and better condition to do your work. Doing M&A, sometimes you cannot mix some things, but I'm sure that everybody can find a half an hour in a day to do something for himself. Work and life balance. If you have to do acquisition the next 2 weeks, well, you will work hard in the next 2 weeks. But our job tends to be cyclical. You'll work very hard for next 2 weeks, and then for next 2 weeks, you'll be much more relaxed. But I'm saying that even in these 2 weeks, you can always find half an hour to do some physical exercise, and I don't know, yoga, whatever you think, just to walk in the garden, in the park, or so yeah, there is no excuse for working I don't know, 18 hours a day.
There's no, and then just carrying on and on, you're going to burn yourself out. I want to ask you, Novica, this is an opportunity for you to say, look, if you had to meet people, if we could do people listening to the podcast, they want to know more, how to get hold of you, to contact you, where would they find you if they were interested in engaging with you in some manner or form? What's the best way to get hold of you?
Honestly, I'm a big fan of LinkedIn. LinkedIn is great. I do tend to answer every message that I get. Maybe I won't answer that in 5 minutes. Maybe I'll answer it in 5 days, but I do answer. Keep in mind that we're also investors, and you really cannot disregard somebody that sends you the pitch. You would think like the best pitches are those that you get from somebody you trust. Not necessarily, the guy is, now we're reviewing the pitch of a guy from Czech Republic. There was no way for me ever to meet this guy. He wrote me to LinkedIn, just like a 2-liner, like, would you look at this? I said, depends of this and that. Are you meeting that? He said, yes. Would you now look at that? I said, no, hold on. When you need the money and for what, and so on. And guy answered with 2-liner. And it took like 3 weeks. Now, when he sent finally the stuff, we're actually doing a due diligence on investing in his company, so yeah, I like LinkedIn. Emails, not really. I'm trying to be a lot of presence at many conferences because of networking, because of meeting intelligent people that you can learn something from. But yeah, you know, for somebody that sits in a different country, like in Czech Republic, you know, or somewhere else, I think LinkedIn is something that can tell you about people. Beware of the people that are having huge holes in their CV in LinkedIn, like, okay, they started working in 1999 and they worked in IBM for 5 years, and then they started working again 2 years ago, you know. So why? I mean, even if they were a housewife, which is great, you know, it's okay if they put a line like housewife of two great kids, you know, which are now at university, because it is an amazing achievement, you know, to have two kids at university or something like that. So, but yeah, LinkedIn is also good for cross-check who is who. So yeah, otherwise email, otherwise conferences.
And would you be looking for? I mean, what is your ideal sort of connection in terms of a deal to invest in, or a type of person you'd like to connect with?
Well, as mentioned, you know, we are sitting on two chairs, you know, one is advisory, one is investing, you know. So for either of these, you know, depending of, you know, out of these, you know, I like when people send me like just few lines to check if there is something of interest. Very often, for example, we don't do any med tech, we don't do any pharma, and people will send me 100 slides pitch, you know, about a pharma tech or medical company, you know. Well, there are two problems with that. One is my ethics. I'm not going to forward that to anybody because, you know, it would be straight wrong. But on the other side, what if I could? What if I would provide that to another company that is maybe pivoting at this point of time? And if they would see that, they would learn something and they would steal the idea. You know, I'm not a big fan of somebody that sends me 100 pages pitch without even doing a homework to find out that we actually invest in aerospace, robotics, artificial intelligence, and photonics, and that we are pretty much doing a M&A advisory in these sectors. You know, if somebody is asking me to advise him about medtech, I don't know anything about that. You know, I've never done on FDA anything, you know, but, you know, we can look about photonics for medical application. We can look at aerospace. Today we were working on with a company that is doing a project of sanitization of the Mars colony. You know, yeah, okay, we're speaking 20 years ahead, but somebody have to do it now, you know. So these guys are fast forward on the colonization of the Mars. You know, yes, it's medical application, but it's a medical application for aerospace. If somebody knows that I'm in the aerospace, he knows that I would like it. You know, if he just sends me the formula for a new Viagra, I don't know anything about that. You know, I cannot validate that anyhow. You know, I don't know even the formula of the previous one. You know, so yeah.
Fantastic. Novica, thank you very much. That was absolutely brilliant. Thank you for your time, sharing your wisdom and knowledge and your experience. I just want to say thank you to our audience for listening in today and for enjoying another episode of 100 Days and Beyond. We look forward to seeing you at the next episode. And please, if you want to get hold of Novica, you know where to find him. And we wish you all your success in your M&A and your integration work.
Thanks a lot. Thank you, Dudley.
So we've done it. Okay. That was very good. That was really, really good. Hi, everybody. This is Dudley again. And if you need help with a future or existing post-merger integration, I want to invite you to arrange a free, no obligation meeting with us. During the meeting, we'll find out exactly what you need, what your challenges are, and we'll explain how our unique PMI slipstream method can help you. Simply call us or visit mergerintegration.co.uk. That's mergerintegration.co.uk, or come to our website, skillfulpursuit.com.